Hi everyone, welcome to this new video. Today I'll um, try to explain why is it so important that we have a psychoanalysis that is completely apart, completely away from points of contact with biology. Now, this research of mine has nothing to do with denying biology. It has to do with the fact that we have disciplines engaged with biology. Psychoanalysis is a specific discourse to treat and to account for situations where biology or biological knowledge might not be enough, simply like that. And I want to discuss a few concepts today, but before we do that, I'd like to read you a few citations from a book called Aping Mankind. It's a book by Raymond Tallis. He wrote extensively about biologism. So his research has to do with the fact that people are not their brains. And that's quite valuable to my research. Although Raymond Tallis, he is completely against Lacan. I read some of his articles back in the 90s. He wrote back in the 90s, and he's not in agreement with Lacan at all. On the contrary. But he does engage with a topic that is a first, is a necessary step for my research and for the the positioning I believe that psychoanalysis must have in this in our contemporary society, which includes avoiding this point of contact with biology, precisely to be able to account for um, suffering in a way that it was it is not inside biological, neurobiological, medical knowledge. So Raymond Tallis has this term that he uses in his book called neuromania. And as I said, his research is we are not our brains. So he develops a series of arguments as of why we are not our brains and why can we not equal personhood to their brains, consciousness, to neuroactivity per se. He obviously does not deny um, the existence and the necessity of biology, but he says from that does not follow that we are equal to our brains. It talks about the neurological fallacy, a lot about this correlation between neuroactivity and some human features, human affairs that are not possible to state the way that it is stated often. But to me, what's interesting is that he's setting up the ground and saying, well, look, we have more than our brains. We are more than our brains. And he stops there. But to me, it's I will pick it up from there. So psychoanalysis can pick up from that point. So if we are not our brains, if everything does not resolves around the brain, then what discipline can still be this opposition to what he calls neuromania, which is basically the assumption that through neurobiological knowledge, we'll be able to explain and understand everything regarding human affairs. So, in let me read you quite um, of an interesting citation. So he says, Let us suppose we accept biologism in full. Our minds are our brains, and our brains are evolved organs designed, as are all organs by natural selection, to maximize our ability, the ability of genes to replicate. And the tool for this replication would be the brain. What follows from this? For many, this means that we are acting out a biological script quite different from the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. We may have to jettison the notion of freedom and consequently of personal responsibility. Worse still, to be identified with our brains is to be identified with a piece of matter, and this, like all other pieces of matter, is subject to and cannot escape from the laws of material nature. Everything that happens in our brains is a product of material events that impinge on them, and the events that result from brain activity, notably our actions, are wired into the endless causal net. Minds and persons are embedded in the physical world. Our destiny, like that of pebbles and waterfalls, is to be predestined. Aping Mankind is in the book where he first tries to make a point that neuromania is actually something through several examples, several new disciplines, neurophilosophy, neuropsychology, neuroliterature, neuro whatever you can think of, there's a neuro something. And he's saying, look, we gotta defend humanities. We gotta defend humanities. So another citation, he goes, it may not be too much to say that sociology and other social sciences, including the humanities, are the last branches of biology waiting to be included in the modern synthesis. If the imperialist ambitions of neuromania were fully realized, they would swallow the image of humanity in the science of biology. Our distinctive nature, our freedom, our selfhood, or even human society will be reduced to the properties of living matter. And this, in turn, would be right to be reduced via molecular biology to matter, period. So it's particularly sickening that the humanities, traditionally a bulwark against the encroaching tides of scientism, have proved so willing to collaborate with the invaders. Neuroevolutionary thought has been welcomed with the garlands of flowers. Unforced marriages with the occupying forces have produced a multitude of interdisciplinary children bearing the names that testify to the happiness of the partnership, although not to the equality of the partners. Worse still, neuroevolutionary thought is breaking out of the academy, where it can probably do little direct harm except interfere with the endeavor to make post-religious sense of ourselves, to more dangerous areas such as education, social policy, and politics, where it may do much harm in the medium term. Another citation. Consider the recent claim that evolutionary psychology can explain why pink is associated with femininity and blue with masculinity. Women in prehistory were the principal gatherers of fruit and would be sensitized to the colors of ripeness, deepening shades of pink. Men, on the other hand, would have looked for good hunting weather and sources of water, both of which are connected with blue. So Raymond Tallis is fighting, he is arguing, he is opposing the idea that we can be equal to our neurobiological functions. Why is this so dear to me? I will tell you the point of view that I believe, and it's present as a diagnose in Apollo's research program, the stance that Freudianism has on biologism. Okay, so what is it that I believe this research program got right, and that translates what further Lacanism uh, thinks regarding biologism, or how it positions itself to in relation to biologism. Thinks jouissance as a release of the living substance to the individual biological organism. So jouissance is engendered in and is a release of the living substance of the individual biological organism. We are born with them. This is a take I think is right or wrong. Difficult to say, no, that's not what further Lacanism is saying. And you're welcome to comment and say, well, that is not what further Lacanism is saying. It's a hard one because they do start from the point from this. They do start from the brain, the body. This comes first. Obviously, this is later subjected to cultural and context relations, but the start is the brain, is the body. Whereas in this research program, we are going to start with language first. Language. Discourse. So before any conception of the subject, which I have been talking a little bit about here, how to differentiate the subject from any psychological entity subsumeable to the subject of understanding and to a biological individual and to a person, to a citizen, any conception of the subject is only if this is already in place. And for psychoanalysis, this is already in place. The problem with biologism is that it will accept the idea, the theory that language emerged from a genetic mutation, and then term after term, language got complicated, and there, at some point, we had the first speaker, and who did he speak to? I don't want to. I don't want to get into that too much, but the point for us is that is necessary a methodological abstraction called synchrony. All elements come together with a set of speakers. So language was there. It's there already. What was before? It doesn't matter if it was 60, 70, 80, 100,000 years ago. Language was there already. That's the methodological abstraction we have to do. And to do this, we cannot have any point of contact with biology for our theory, for us to be able to account for the fact that psychoanalysis precisely emerged from the fact that patients would go to doctors, to medical doctors, would find nothing wrong with their bodies, still they would feel pain, they would suffer, and so they would go to Freud. It was a mistake to believe it came from the body. Therefore, Freud said, well, let's treat it via speech. So to oppose that, we need to oppose the idea that the body, the brain, the biology comes first and determines some kind of aspect of our life for certain aspects of human affairs. Not for every, as I said at the beginning, it's not denying that, but it's a system of ideas that requires a set of operations to have some kind of opposition, rational opposition to neurobiological imperatives, medical knowledge, which today is trying to find its legitimacy through neurobiology. I think that's quite clear. So for us at Apola, drives, instead of being born with drives is language, discourse, and then you're gonna have body, imaginary body. By the way, I don't know if you can see here, but bodies on the Bohemian knot is imaginary. And then we'll have drives, we'll have a body. Drives are the echo in the body of the fact that there is a same. So the echo is a mistake, if you think about it. It looks like it's coming from a place. Jouissance is always jouissance of the other, phallic. This symbol has to be outside the body. This is of the other. It is impossible that they are originated here or here. They are both created in the signifying chain, which we have been talking here. The signifying chain. This is the first, and then you have to have a second one for it to operate. First scene, a second scene. You have the signifying chain, which will create, well, we could go into the tori right now, but let's not. Let's not, because I am trying to do short videos. So the point is, jouissance is created by the signifying articulation in the field of the other, and it can affect the three-dimensional body. Yes, but there's a difference between the potency of the signifier and the body that speaks what the signifier cannot capture. Two different worlds, absolutely distinct worlds. We do not deny needs and sensations of the biological body, but they are neither the issue nor the subject of psychoanalysis. That again, it's a program. It's a theoretical model. None of this in psychoanalysis is supposed to be found in a proof in reality. At least not the way I see it. A system of ideas, articulated ideas that must be developed, that must have a covariant functioning, meaning concepts need to work with each other, and if you change one concept, the other concept needs to change as well. So what could we say about the neuropsychoanalysis endeavor? I believe neuropsychoanalysis is its own project. It will gain in their field of neuro, probably something, I don't know, but it loses, I believe, the radicality, the subversive aspect of psychoanalysis. As soon as it's found here, then we have a different notion of language at all, like a complete different notion of what language represents to us in psychoanalysis. We could talk about the difference between the representation, the inscriptions, the traces in Freud, and then the signifiers in Lacan, to bring more substance to those differences, and we will with time. But before we do any of that, I am working on text to talk about heraldry, which is something that Lacan speaks of a couple of times when he mentions the body in psychoanalysis. And I believe the next video will be about psychoanalysis and heraldry. Okay, so That's it. Thank you. See you next time.